Stuttgart Open director Markus Günthardt recently placed Alex Eala directly into the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix main draw. This decision has drawn attention across the WTA, as it highlights a broader conversation about rankings and player influence. This isn't just about a wild card entry. It reflects the situation where a 20-year-old Filipina player, currently ranked number 46, is already attracting significant global attention and commercial interest. Levels often associated with top-ranked players, raises an important question for the sport. How should the system respond when a player's impact goes beyond their current ranking? This moment shows that the gap between rankings and real-world influence is becoming more noticeable, and the WTA may need to adapt to these changing dynamics.
Filipino fans made their way to catch the Pinay tennis phenom in action.
I've been coming to this tournament for 10 years. So I'm excited that we finally have a Filipino here again.
I got a selfie with her, and also this is my first ever tennis tournament ever. So I'm excited. It's special.
Filipina tennis star Alex Eala takes center stage at the BNP Paribas Tennis Paradise in Indian Wells, and of course, Filipino fans turn out in full force to cheer her on.
Before Markus Günthardt extended what some observers described as a VIP-style welcome upon Alex Eala's arrival in Germany, she was not expected to be part of the Stuttgart main draw. Eala was originally listed among 14 players set to compete in the qualifying rounds. If things had stayed that way, it would have marked the first tournament of her 2026 season where she entered without direct qualification based on ranking or a wildcard. However, the situation changed. World number 37, Qin Wenjiang, withdrew due to injury, and Günthardt moved Eala directly into the main draw. Some analysts viewed this not as coincidence, but as a strategic decision. They point to the timing, which aligns with what market observers have identified as a measurable rise in ticket sales, broadcast interest, and digital engagement whenever Eala's name appears in a tournament lineup. The field she is entering is highly competitive, including top players such as Iga Swiatek, Aryna Sabalenka, Elena Rybakina, Coco Gauff, Jasmine Paolini, Alina Svitolina, and Mira Andreeva, many of whom are ranked among the top 10 in the WTA. From this perspective, the decision was not solely about rankings. Instead, it reflects the growing recognition of Eala's presence in the sport, with analysts noting that her market appeal is increasingly comparable to some of the game's most established players.
Grateful for all the support that's been coming my way, and it's really heartwarming to see that they really they make the effort and they take the time to come out and to support, and it makes the experience for the player.
To understand how Stuttgart reached this point, you have to go back to March 2026, to the BNP Paribas Open at Indian Wells, and a third-round match between Alex Eala and Coco Gauff. Heading into that match, anticipation had been building for weeks. Some observers estimated that Eala's rising profile contributed to a significant surge in commercial engagement and broadcast attention throughout the North American hardcourt swing. By March 16, she had already reached a career-high ranking of world number 29, following strong runs in Dubai and Indian Wells. However, the match against Gauff ended unexpectedly when the fourth seed was forced to retire due to persistent pain in her left arm, only the second retirement of her career. The moment drew heavy media attention, especially given the global spotlight already surrounding Eala, and the days that followed. Interest in the WTA event increased noticeably, with spikes in ticket demand, digital engagement, and merchandise sales linked to Eala's matches. As a result, her ranking continued to shift over the following weeks. By April 6, 2026, she had settled at world number 46 with 1,255 ranking points. However, that ranking requires context. Eala did not lose points. Instead, she was overtaken when other players, including Peyton Stearns, gained points from strong performances in Charleston, pushing her slightly down the standings. This is what makes the Stuttgart situation notable. Eala entered the 2026 clay season ranked just outside the direct acceptance range for a WTA 500 event. Without a late withdrawal, she would have started in qualifying rounds. But when world number 37 Qin Wenjiang withdrew, Stuttgart director Markus Günthardt placed her directly into the main draw. Analysts describe this as more than a simple replacement. They point to the growing gap between traditional ranking systems and commercial impact, where certain players generate significant audience and revenue interest beyond what their ranking suggests. Some industry voices have referred to this kind of situation as a balance between sporting merit and commercial value, where increased visibility can also lead to greater opportunities for ranking points and prize money. Supporters see it as a modern evolution of the sport. Critics see it as a structural compromise. Either way, the Stuttgart decision highlights a growing reality in tennis. The ranking system is no longer the only measure of a player's influence.
And,
Yeah.
it's great always to welcome new players and newcomers and players who will own the future, I would say. So it's great, yeah, to welcome Alexandra here in Linz in this special year, and it's also our
Yes.
first time.
If Stuttgart represents a calculated institutional response to the Eala effect, then the Upper Austria Ladies Linz event in the days prior offered a clearer indication of why such a response was emerging. On April 7th, Eala competed in Linz against Austria's Julia Grabher, ranked number 89, in front of a home crowd. Despite the location, the atmosphere appeared heavily skewed in Eala's favor. Observers and media noted the unusually strong support for an away player, describing it as a significant shift from the typical home court dynamic. Eala won the match 6-4, 6-3 in 1 hour and 42 minutes, marking her first clay court victory of the season. Reports from the event indicated elevated ticket demand and heightened engagement during her appearance. Analysts attributed this to a globally distributed fan base, including overseas Filipino communities across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, whose following of her matches has become increasingly consistent across tournaments and earlier events, including Dubai. Eala's matches were also scheduled on main courts despite ranking considerations, due to strong attendance demand. The WTA described such adjustments as operational decisions in response to audience interest, though they have also prompted broader discussion about the relationship between competitive hierarchy and commercial demand. Eala would later exit Linz in the second round after losing a 5-1 lead in the second set against Yelena Ostapenko. However, the commercial impact of her participation had already been established. Against this backdrop, the Stuttgart decision takes on broader significance. Industry observers have noted that Eala's rising profile has coincided with commercial indicators, such as ticket sales, broadcast engagement, and merchandise demand, that appear atypical for a player ranked outside the top 20. Some analysts describe this as a case of institutional lag, a mismatch between traditional ranking-based entry systems and evolving market-driven visibility within professional tennis. Comparisons have been made to earlier breakout cases, including Emma Raducanu's 2021 U.S. Open run, when commercial and media momentum outpaced the sport's existing promotional structures. In Eala's case, sponsorship activity has also expanded rapidly, including partnerships with Nike and high-profile media features such as Vogue Philippines, reflecting her growing international visibility. From a structural perspective, supporters view this evolution as a natural outcome of globalization in sport, where audience engagement increasingly influences commercial ecosystems. Critics, however, argue it introduces tension between sporting merit and market-driven opportunity. The institutional level, the Philippine Sports Development Framework, including support from the Philippine Sports Commission under Chairman Patrick Gregorio, has also contributed to expanding tennis infrastructure and athlete visibility. This includes initiatives that have helped position Filipino tennis within the broader WTA ecosystem, alongside events such as the country's hosting of a WTA 125 tournament. Within this context, Stuttgart is not an isolated decision but part of a broader pattern in which tournaments are responding to both competitive and commercial realities. At the same time, competitive tensions have surfaced. Following her match against Eala in Dubai, Jasmine Paolini reportedly commented on the intensity of the crowd atmosphere, highlighting the growing emotional and environmental pressures surrounding high-profile matches. On court, however, Eala has already recorded wins over established top-ranked opponents, demonstrating competitive capability against elite opposition. In Stuttgart, she enters one of the strongest draws of the season, featuring Iga Swiatek, Aryna Sabalenka, Elena Rybakina, Coco Gauff, Jasmine Paolini, Alina Svitolina, and Mira Andreeva. Günthardt's decision to place her directly into the main draw reflects not only a replacement due to withdrawal, but also the broader recognition of her growing presence within the sport's commercial and competitive landscape. What unfolds in Stuttgart will therefore serve as a practical test of whether her rise translates consistently at the highest level, or whether the system itself continues adapting in response to players whose influence extends beyond traditional ranking structures. Ultimately, the question is no longer why she attracts attention, but how professional tennis adjusts if that attention continues to grow.